If I can have your attention, good evening. Welcome to Candidates Night. I'm Bob Harb. I'm your town moderator, school moderator, and one of your state representatives. I'd like us to start, as always, our public meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please all rise? The flag is behind me. Please join me in a pledge to Old Glory. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. It's always a pleasure for us to be here every year and invited by the library and the library trustees. We're very fortunate tonight. We have the chairperson of the Board of Trustees of the library, Megan Lee. She'd like to say a few words and welcome you to the Plaistow Public Library. Megan?
That about sums it up. My name is Megan Lee. I did want to welcome you all tonight and thank you all for coming to the library for this Candidates Night. We were discussing earlier this week that this is something that the library has been doing, for over 40 years. And it is a pleasure for us to be able to provide this time to meet with candidates and just to prepare everyone for what's coming up next week. We do want to say thank you to the Friends of the Library. They've very graciously laid out a lovely table of goodies there. If you do want snacks or something to drink, it's still available back there. Thank you to the candidates for coming and being willing to be just grilled here tonight. And just thank you to you as the community for coming and being part of this night. It's important for us to know what's going on in our community, and we're just happy to partner with you all in this way. We also want to thank Bob Harb and Norm Major as they are helping moderate this evening. Not helping, they are moderating, doing all of the work.
Helping you.
I will turn it back to you. Just wanted to say thank you all and hope you enjoy tonight and get out of it what you need. Thanks.
Thank you, Megan. And I echo to thank my assistant, Norm Major. He's here, and tonight he actually has a bell. So candidates, here's how we're going to run the event, as we have been running it. Every candidate will have 1 minute, 60 seconds to introduce themselves. We're going to start the introductions on my immediate right with Mr. Termini, and then we'll go down the line. Every candidate will have 1 minute to answer a question and 1 minute to respond to a fellow candidate's answer. You will, at the end, have 1 minute to wrap up. At the end, we'll start on my far right, and then we'll go in reverse fashion this way. So everybody gets a minute. It's kind of easy. Everything's a minute, okay? If you exceed the minute, Norm will give you the famous bell. And I've asked Dean to shut off your microphone, but I don't know if he'll do that. So you have a minute. Try to time yourself. I know some of you will pull out your cell phones and watch the time, but it's very important. For the audience, I'm told that we are not live stream on cable. It will be televised on cable later, but it's taped. But we are live streaming Facebook, YouTube, and Vimeo. So if those at home want to watch, or those listening, or you got friends, Facebook, YouTube, and video is all live streamed. Dean Zanello, I want to thank him in the other room for all that he does for us in communication. He says you should have no trouble following this evening on one of these media outlets. I've been told that tonight there's actually a question for the moderator, and it's kind of hard for me to ask myself a question. So I don't know what the question is, but my assistant moderator, Norm Major, knows what it is, but I was told I could have like 30 seconds and not a minute to introduce myself. So I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Bob Harb. I'm your town moderator. I had to look it up. Norm and I looked it up. It's been 12 years I've been your moderator, 12 wonderful years. Thank you very much. I thoroughly enjoy it. Everybody asks me, why do you do it? Because like everybody else, I enjoy working with the community, helping the community, and carrying on the events and the history of my prior moderator, Steve Ranlett and Barry Sargent. Barry taught me all that I know about being a moderator, and Norm was there to follow up and fill in all the blanks. And I thank Norm for these many years. Norm probably goes back those 40 years that we've been coming here. And I thank him for that and still being with us. I've lived in town almost 40 years, my wife says. You lose track. I'm an attorney. I practice law in New Hampshire and Massachusetts, and I'm just active in the community. My wife used to be the Girl Scout cookie mom, so if you bought cookies a while ago, you might have bought them from my garage because that's where we kept all the Girl Scout cookies. So I think that's enough about me. I really wanted to hear about the other candidates, but Norm, what's my question?
Bob, the question is, how do you communicate to residents if there is inclement weather predicted on Election Day to advise of any changes?
Well, thank you, Norm. And that's a good question for the public to want to know. The state's legislature a few years ago changed the requirements to cancel a meeting because of inclement weather. We actually notify you on the internet at the location of the town website. I posted on my Facebook, on my Instagram. But for us to call the day, I have to meet with the town maintenance department, the fire, the safety, the police department, the town manager, the select board, and decide how serious is the weather. And is it a category that the new law allows us to cancel a meeting? Because it has to be deemed by the United States Weather Bureau. We actually rely upon the U.S. Weather Bureau to say how drastic the weather is. And for those, and we have to go by them, even though it may be different in Plaistow. And for... Thank you, Norm. Norm asked me to go over so he could test the bell. Well, now to the people I really wanted to hear tonight. I appreciate you for being here. We're going to start with Matt. 1 minute to introduce yourselves, a minute or less, or whatever you wish to take. Matt, starting with you.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening, everybody that's here tonight and those watching at home. My name is Matt Termini, and I'm asking for your vote next week for the open 4-year term for supervisor of the checklist. I have lived in the town of Plaistow pretty much my entire life. I was raised here, went to school here. My folks are still just on the other side of town. My wife and I are now just around the corner on Mayray Ave. We've been back in town for about 7 years now. My day job, I work for the state of Massachusetts for a agency that operates state office buildings and state property. I'm their chief of security and emergency preparedness. But most importantly, I've currently been serving in town on the Conflict of Interest Committee for the past 2 years. The past year, I was the chair of that committee. And more relevant to my ask to be elected to this position, I've been working as a ballot clerk in town at elections for the past 4 years. So there's a chance I've seen many of you as you've come through the table to have your name checked off. So just asking for your vote and an opportunity to further my responsibility and my involvement.
Thank you. Next, Randall, library trustee candidate.
Hi, I'm Randall Mickelson, a Plaistow resident since 2009. I'm seeking a seat as library trustee to help enhance the library's already considerable value to the community. I retired last year after 35 years as a global journalist, and the job taught me a lot about making public policy, and I managed a diverse team of individual employees. I'm currently a trustee at the Seacoast Repertory Theater in Portsmouth. It's a nonprofit with a $3 million budget and a mission similar to the libraries of enriching the culture of the community it serves. After 2016, I presented a program on combating fake news for this library and many others around New Hampshire. This gave me insight into the key role libraries play in the state and ideas on how to expand their service to the community. I've recently attended library board meetings and met with leadership here to get more background as I considered my candidacy. I'd see my role as a trustee.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Randall. We appreciate that.
Yep.
Next, for planning, Richard Anthony. Richard.
Good evening. My name is Richard Anthony. I live at 4 Village Way. I've been in Plaistow for over 20 years. I have two children that are in Timberlane. I work in my day job at Empower doing data automation. I'm currently on the planning board as an alternate. I serve in the budget committee, and before that, I was on the trash recycling advisory committee. And I'm looking to fill the current 3-year role in the planning board. My guiding principle for wanting to be on the planning board is quite simply one of accountability, openness of process, and non-weaponization of the process. And I think, I want to be able to give back to the community and leave it in a better state than I found it.
Thank you, Richard. Also for planning, Peter Belo. Peter.
Good evening, folks. My name is Peter Belo, and I'm running for the position, a position on the planning board. Since the late 1980s, I've held a variety of appointed and elected positions at Plaistow. I started on the budget committee with John Sherman and Buzzy Blinn and such. I was on the Timberlane Budget Committee, Timberlane School Board for 6 years. I'm presently a member of the Energy Committee and the chair of the Zoning Board. Should I prevail, I plan on stepping off the Energy Committee. In my now retired life, I lead the Plaistow AARP Tax Aid Group, doing taxes for local citizens at no cost. Last year, our group of 8 people generated about $250,000 in rebates and saved clients about $60,000 in tax preparation fees. The Plaistow Public Library has hosted us for the last 3 years. I hold a bachelor's in science and an MBA degree and had a long career in high tech, doing engineering, marketing, and project management. Thank you, Norm.
Norm's getting a lot of use out of that bell tonight.
Next year, make it a cowbell.
Norm likes his bell.
He does. He's doing a great job. For school budget committee, Lauren Sheff, and Lauren has an assistant with her. You might want to introduce.
Hi, my name's Lauren Schlurf. This is my daughter, Ava Schlurf.
Welcome.
Hi. I'll be running for school budget committee, and this will be my first stint on the ballot. I've been in Plaistow since 2017, and as a taxpayer, sorry, there's some feedback there. As a taxpayer and 2 kids in Timberlane, I have invested interest on both sides. So I'm a tenacious, creative thinker, and I hope to use that perspective to solve problems. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and thank your assistant for being here with us tonight. We love to see the children out. We're all for the kids. God bless them. I'm going to start with a question on the school budget committee. I have a bunch of questions here. People called in, emailed in. You'll notice there's also a mic in the middle of the room. At a point in tonight's presentation, I'm going to ask if anybody in the audience wants to get up and ask a question. So when you approach them, I just give your name and your address, and you can ask the question to the candidates. So we're not just going by the mail-in and the email. We're going by you who are here. So that's why the mic's there, so that Mr. Zanello can pick you up on his machine. He's trying to check why we have so much feedback. We haven't really had that problem. I'll wait a second. It looks like he's adjusting the speakers. So here's the question, Lauren. The school district budget is far and away the largest part of our tax burden. What are your ideas for controlling the cost of future budgets when you're on the committee? Do you have any ideas about the budget?
I went to the latest meeting, public meeting, and I heard a lot about all the cuts, and I was wondering about maybe creative ways to draw in funding to support the school budget, and along with the tax dollar. So I was hoping to maybe see and evaluate if there's any creative ways to bring more funding in and help the budget along with the taxpayer dollar.
Thank you.
Could I go to the mic and ask her?
I will ask you when you can come up, okay?
Thank you, sir.
We'll give you an opportunity.
Thank you, sir.
For the planning candidates, first Peter, then Richard. The question is about Main Street here in Plaistow. What vision do you have for Main Street? Do you think the planning is proper, the zoning is proper? What do you see for the future use or development of our Main Street? Peter first.
I think the from a zoning perspective, I think Main Street's in pretty good shape. I think the issue we have really is one of traffic. We need to do some traffic calming here. Adding some stop signs like at Westville Road in Main Street, maybe down to East Pine in Maine, might slow traffic down and encourage people to stick to Route 125 instead of going down Main Street.
Thank you. And Richard, what is your answer for that question?
With respect to Main Street, on the planning board, I've consistently advocated for, some sort of the fact that people want to see something that's going to happen for speed, with respect to speed mitigation. All right. There was a application that was before us that, in pushing that imperative to them, they actually contributed $50,000 that was going to be remitted to our traffic calming study. All right. That would include perhaps maybe a small roundabout in around maybe the town hall area. We've talked about having maybe like raised sidewalks going across, crosswalks going across Main Street. There's been questions of maybe having like build outs on sidewalks. All right, but all these things are meant to just sort of, slow the rate of traffic going down. Trucks that are coming up Main Street, if they encounter, let's say, a roundabout, they're going to be discouraged from wanting to come interact with the roundabout, and the traffic will go elsewhere. But at the same time, it's not just about calming. All right.
60 seconds goes by very fast.
It does.
We've seen that tonight.
I have to have like a little.
So I have another
second
question
notice.
for planning. With this time, we're going to start with Richard, and then we'll go to Peter to answer it. So we're swapping. What do you think about having a town planner and the town to hire a town planner? You're wanting to be on the planning board. Should we have a town planner, hired town planner? Richard?
Actually, I think we've had great success with interacting with the Rockingham Planning Council. All right. Right now, we've contracted with them to have a planner. We brought a planner on board, contracted with them. They've helped us with our master plan development and also provide, certain advisory capacity. And I would think going forward on the planning board, that's a model that I would like to see where we contract with somebody. There's work product that we can evaluate. And if it isn't what we want, then we can either get a new planner or we can go a different direction. But I don't want to be encumbered by something that if we make a decision, it then becomes something that we're saddled with.
Thank you. Peter, same question?
I also believe that RPC brings something to the table. They help a lot in the master plan. I've worked with them in the past doing that when last I was on a planning board. But the way we use them as note takers at planning board meetings is just throwing money away. Now, while part of me wants to say we need a town planner, in the past we weren't successful, and I believe it was really candidate driven more than anything. They just didn't bring anything or enough to the table. So it's a puzzlement.
Thank you. Moving on to Randall, the library trustee position. Do you think the library will need to expand in the near future? What do you think about the current building? Does it meet the community's current needs? Randall?
I think right now the library is preparing to assess that very question, and they will be seeking input from the community about first of all, how best to deal with the existing structure and facility as it is. They're talking about reconfiguring. So the first step in that is to get that community input. I'm experienced at asking questions. Love to talk to all of you about ideas you'd have in that area.
Thank you, Randall. Now on to the supervisor of the checklist, and Matt. This is a multi-phase question. I can repeat it if you'd like. How is the list of town voters, your checklist, updated? What do you do to make sure it's accurate? And what about people who no longer live in town? So the checklist, how do you update it, make sure it's accurate, and what if someone doesn't live in town?
So the checklist is updated by the supervisors on an ongoing basis. For those that aren't aware, there are 3 in the town. And updates occur during the course of the year. There are scheduled sessions prior to elections where folks are able to come in and update information, address changes, name changes, and the like. In regards to accuracy, it's about having good records. Folks that have voted, if there's changes that are communicated at the tables to the ballot clerks, having good records that are kept there and having that information transferred into the database for the checklist. That's one of the reasons why I'm interested in taking on this role is there's a lot of push towards new technology that I think I can assist with in making sure that the checklist is accurate. And in regards to folks that move out of town, it's my understanding that there is a statewide database that periodically makes communications to the town to let folks know when they are no longer eligible to vote in the town of Plaistow because of an address change or other it's a tough one, ineligibility.
Thank you, Matt. Now, I know I had a lady here that would like to ask a question of Lauren for the school budget committee. You can go up to the mic.
Thank you, sir.
And while she's approaching the mic, I will, after she finishes, ask if there's anybody has questions for the planning candidates, and then the library trustee and the supervisor of the checklist, but I'll go down the list. So go ahead, Matt.
Good afternoon, and I'd like to thank you for having the courage to run because nobody likes the school board right now. So, majority of our taxes. With that said, many years ago when we were building the PAC Center, I worked for Busby Construction and I helped to build it. I'm sorry. And I helped to build that facility with pride. We had a lady named Diane Rockwell who would encourage other activities outside of the school to come in to utilize the PAC Center that brought in revenue. And for some reason that went kaput. We've got a beautiful center at our fingertips. And as several towns, why, my question to you is, as you go into this, why is it not being utilized to have performances that people pay to go to that will bring in revenue? Because the school budget's killing us. So if, I know you can't answer the question, you're not there yet. I would like you to take my question with you as you move forth and say to people, why are we not bringing in outside people? Every dollar counts. If you watch your pennies, your dollars will grow. And I'm super cheap.
Again, I agree with you. I think more creative thinking needs to be, people need to think outside the box to bring creative funding instead of cutting to help support our tax dollars. So taking this role, I hope to bring a fresh set of eyes and open ears and listen to the community and help bring those ideas to the board to just bring in money to help assist our tax dollars.
Because it was working once and all of a sudden it stopped. Politics, whatever. I don't know why it stopped. It was working once. I think we need to go back to that. Every dollar counts.
I agree.
And I also like your assistant. She's
Thank you.
cute. I wish you the best
agree.
of luck.
Thank you.
And thank you, ma'am.
Yes, thank you for your question.
Margot Collins, Plaistow, New Hampshire.
Thank you, Margot.
Thank you, sir.
Do you have a question for the planning or for Lauren?
For Lauren.
We'll take one more question for Lauren, then we'll move down the list.
Currently, the cost per student,
I know who you are, but did you say it in the mic?
I got this down pat. No, Nolan Pelletier, 24 North Ave, Plaistow, New Hampshire. Right now, the average cost per student is $27,000 in our district. If the teachers' raises go up, it's going to be roughly a little bit over $28,000. I know that you said you're looking for creative ways to bring in extra money. Will you be looking for ways to save within the school system as well? Because those are very high numbers for education per student. To not have the facilities and support they need with that numbers, that's very concerning to me as a citizen.
Yes, well, I mean, one of my thoughts, and again, I would be new to this, but one of my ideas would be, talking to the staff and teachers and seeing ways that I've heard people say as administrative wise, are there too many people doing are there too many jobs, or can we make cutbacks on some salaries, different positions? So looking for ways to cut back within the schools, obviously would be another concern of mine, but then also trying to find out funds on the outside to bring in to help support the dollars. But I feel your pain.
Do we have any audience questions for the planning candidates? Planning.
No.
Well, I was going to drop the mic, but not like that.
You do that at the end, don't
Yeah,
you, Max?
I
Not
know.
in the beginning.
Max Dobson, Plaistow, New Hampshire. So, per the ZBA minutes of 3/30/23, the planning chair had reached out to the ZBA and requested a meeting to discuss the master plan and economic development. But after consulting legal, the ZBA was told that both boards would be limited to discussing each other's processes, and as any other discussion could be limited to discussing each other's process, as any other discussion could. I guess basically what I'm trying to say is legal told you you'd be biased if you were serving on both boards. So why now is it okay for a member of the ZBA to be on the planning board? And I would like to know the people running how they feel about that.
Start with Peter.
Okay, well, zoning board of adjustment. Yeah. Actually, the New Hampshire RSAs allow one member of the planning board to also be on the zoning board. You can't have more than one crossover. But the fundamental reason why the zoning board couldn't go and chat with the planning board is because there are different functions. The zoning board is basically a court. They call it quasi-judicial organization. We make judgments for specific people, for specific cases. Planning board comes up with policies. That'd be like the legislature in DC calling the Supreme Court in to have a chat about how the laws are. Okay, it just isn't done. The courts are fully independent of the policy-making boards, except for that one crossover the RSAs allow. But it's a good question.
I'm just going to amplify what Peter said, but take exception to a couple things. The policies and procedures of the planning board, all right, or Plaistow does allow for like a co-type meetings of the ZBA and planning board. All right, so it explicitly allows for that type situation. Second, with respect to who can be on ZBA or planning board and such, I believe the planning board can have one land use, somebody who's on another land use board, and it isn't just the ZBA. So that would include, let's say, perhaps the Conservation Commission or the ZBA. So it's just not limited to the ZBA. But I understand that if you have somebody that's serving in both capacities, though, all right, that's different. And there's obviously an occasion for conflict of interest and manifest occasion for recusals and things like that, because you are going to have occasions where somebody has business before the ZBA, and then conceptually is going to have business before the planning board. So that is problematic.
Thank you. Any other question for the planning board candidates?
Ryan Lebrecq, 174 Main Street. Over the last several years, it's been clear the planning board has continued to restrict property owners' rights to utilize their property as they see appropriate, culminating to the current issue where the planning board's even trying to restrict the number of vehicles that independent contractors can have on their property. If you are on the planning board, what is your philosophy on continued restriction of individual property owners' rights, and what will you do to prevent those further restrictions?
We'll start with Richard.
With respect to those questions on zoning that are, let's say, vehicles that can be parked in front of a house as such, I look at it this way. You have a public hearing, the public gets to express itself with respect to a proposed amendment, and then the public gets to decide. So If it's a question of restricting the number of, let's say, vehicles that can be parked in front of a house or in a public way, then, and if that's something that citizens or residents of Plaistow don't want, then I say vote it down, all right? Or if there's a public hearing, come to the public hearing, express yourself. There'll be people watching, and, perhaps the give and take, will cause people to reconsider their positions. So let the people decide, right?
Thank you. Peter?
Thank you. I guess zoning by definition, any zoning by definition is taking away people's rights to do whatever they please with their properties. But that said, we all want to live next to neighbors that keep up their properties, that don't put trash out, don't put too many commercial vehicles on their property. So as a group, by the way, I believe the planning board has lost its way. Potential new businesses have been driven away with statements from planning board members such as, "We don't need you, you're a nonprofit, and I already use a different service in dairy." Such consideration should never be made. They cost the town tax money and the citizens' choices of services and potentially cost savings through competition. And in this particular decision I referenced, robbed a landlord of his first opportunity to rent a small space that's been commercial, that's been vacant for 15 years.
Thank you, Peter. Do we have any questions for our library trustee candidate, Randall?
Actually, could I rebut that, since indirectly it's referencing the planning board, but not necessarily me, but
I'll give you 10 seconds.
okay. The particular property in question, what was concerning the planning board was that they wanted to waive having a site plan review, all right? And we thought in that particular case that we wanted to have an updated site plan. They didn't want to do that, so that they didn't pursue the application any further. So no one was driven out. It was the applicant decided not to comply with the requirements that were put in front of them.
For the library trustee, questions? We'll come back again, but I'd like to get some for this poor man. He's waiting for a question. So.
Excuse me. Good evening, sir.
Hi.
I do utilize the library, and I have friends that work here. And I have been an alternate on the budget committee, and I'm running again. And I think it's very important that every department head, and the library's a little different because you've got the library and the trustees, so you guys kind of wiggle under a lot of lines. But transparency is important. You come to the budget committee, you come to the selectmen, you ask for funding, you state your case, but you got this wiggle line that other departments don't have. So I guess the bottom line I want to say is transparency. We have a couple of department heads that are very transparent, post monthly, everything that transpires within the department. And I would like to see that from the library. I'd like to see how many users, what type of things they're using, CDs, books, whatever. And it's more a request than anything else, but we support you. We as taxpayers support you, and I'm asking you to give support back to us, telling us why you're such a vital part of this community. And I support the library.
Well, thank you. And those are good points. A couple quick responses. I think the library has shown its value far exceeds its budget in terms of the services it returns to the community, the value of the books and the programs and everything. You add those up and it's a multiple of its budget. As a private citizen, I've come to board meetings and watched them and even been able to speak. I have seen figures about utilization. Some of those are in the town report. I just saw there on page 122.
And we get them once a year. Could we possibly get them monthly, sir?
I'll have to check with the library leadership to see what is produced monthly, but I'm sure those figures are there and can be. I will take that issue seriously about transparency. I fully believe in that, And I think I can support that and help facilitate any answers to your concerns.
Thank you, sir, and I strongly suggest you do, because we people want to know exactly everything, and it's hard times, and we're doing the best we can, so I thank you for your answer, sir.
Thank you.
The lonely man, the supervisors of the checklist. Does somebody have a question for the supervisors of the checklist? Well, I'll throw one out at you. I don't know if you're familiar. Are you familiar with the poll books that a lot of the towns are using? And do you have an opinion about Plaistow investing and starting to use poll books?
So when you're saying poll books, are you talking about the electronic ones that are being moved to?
Yeah.
I'm vaguely aware of them. I believe actually you and I discussed them one night. I'm not intimately familiar with the technology. Being an individual who has worked the elections for the past 4 years, I think there's always an advantage. Anything that's going to give the folks that are working as election officials an efficient and a streamlined process to move lines and to ensure accuracy. But truth be told, it's a bit of a blind spot aside from just having a conversation with like-minded folks. It'd be something I'd have to look into further.
Good, thank you. Now I have a public ask question of the school budget committee candidate. What ideas do you have for increasing transparency and community involvement in your budget making process? Increasing transparency and increasing community involvement.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, it is. I didn't make this one up.
Increasing transparency. Can you repeat that one more time?
Do you have an idea how you can increase the transparency of the budget committee for the rest of us?
I would just say being honest with the voters at the public hearings, and just offering the best that I can do for the community. I don't again, this is my first stint on the ballot, so.
No, it's a tough question if you haven't served before, but I
Yeah.
thought you handled that well.
Thank you.
Planning, I have a question for planning. Every candidate says they want to improve our town. Can you give one or two things you think the planning board can do to help improve Plaistow? We'll start with Peter.
Sure. The planning board could take another look at commercial zoning, I think. We've been, in recent years, we've been trying to limit development of the upper end of Route 125 with the theory that little mom and pop shops can go in there. But that's not an ideal place for that kind of operation. It's more of a big box or distribution center location. I think we need to take a look at that. No one wants a distribution center in their town until they realize that, like, the distribution center that's going to be going on to 125 is paying like $140,000 of fees to go in, and the estimated taxes are $400,000 a year, and they don't put kids in the school district. Okay, and it's going to be set so far back off of 125 you won't see it. So there's got to be room for everybody. And we have a lot of little spaces on the southern part of Route 125 for small businesses to move into. All the plazas have openings and have had them for a while.
Thank you, Peter. Richard?
Just a couple of things. Again, Plaistow is now part of the Southern New Hampshire Chamber of Commerce. All right. We brought those people in just because they bring a lot of resources to businesses in Plaistow, in terms of networking and visibility. Additionally, we can support agritourism. All right, you see a warrant article in front of you. It's a citizen's petition. All right, it'll redefine agritourism in Plaistow. It'll put Plaistow on the cutting edge with respect to New Hampshire. All right, which would be nice. That in terms of like encouraging farm food to farm to table type operations and such. In terms of the distribution center, again, the distribution center, where they're contributing $50,000, right, to our traffic calming on Main Street. So that's an indication of the type of partnership that we wanted to have with business coming in. They recognized what our priorities were, and they addressed those priorities.
And Peter, since Richard brought up agritourism, I had a question here which Richard sort of answered, but I want to give you an opportunity. What are your opinions about agritourism and the citizens petition?
Well, my position is I think agritourism is a good industry, if you will, a good overlay district to bring into this town. There's 4 or 5 different farms that could potentially benefit from doing that. However, I won't be voting for this particular citizens petition. It was written specifically by one farm without planning board or abutters or anyone else's inputs. What I said would propose is, as soon as the elections are over, we gather together the folks that own the farms, the planning board, abutters, any other stakeholders, and put together maybe a better or more comprehensive warrant article.
Thank you.
Can I respond to that for?
Yeah, I think this is an issue that seems to be coming up, so take a minute.
Yeah, with respect to agritourism, what you need to understand is that zoning is living, breathing type regulations, all right? So if we wanted to make this more robust, or if we felt that there was something that was deficient or didn't have enough input of what, then Plaistow perhaps should put something together similar to what we have with the transportation that we've seen with respect to Main Street, but bring in all the interested parties, all right? And maybe even state actors too, at the state level, where things can be tweaked, where it can be adjusted, and it can be revisited. We do that all the time with zoning right now. In fact, we have zoning that we've had a couple years in a row that we haven't gotten right, that might have been blatantly null and void. All right, but it's currently on the ballot where we've adjusted it, like site plan review or site plan applicability. The same thing can be done with agritourism. All right, there was public hearings and people could get on board, and we can make it something that is relevant for Plaistow.
Can I rebut that?
No, I think we've had enough back and forth on that. You both had an opportunity to talk about agritourism. I'd like to go to Randall. You may not know the answer to this question, Randall, but they ask you as the candidate for the library trustees, do you know how much revenue the library makes during a year? Not what it's given, but what it makes, and how is it spent? Do you have any idea?
It is a small portion of the budget. I know the overall budget's about $600 and some thousand dollars, a little under $700,000. In terms of revenues from fines and things like that, it is relatively small amount, and I do know that its spending is given deliberate thought and consideration toward meeting current needs. I don't know those exactly, but that is something I know is in the town report. And again, as a trustee, overseeing the budget, overseeing the administration, that's something I'd look at and look for ways to be responsible and efficient with that money.
Thank you, Randall. And I know the Board of Selectmen would like me to mention that the town report is available here at the library. It's available at the town hall, and we're going to have hundreds of books available at the town election next Tuesday at the Fish and Game from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And they want to give them out. So when you leave, take a book. And there's a lot of good information in it, especially when their trash is going to be picked up. Matt, I don't have any more questions here. Does anybody have a question for the supervisor or the checklist candidate? Yes, they're phased out, Matt. So I'll go back to the school budget. Lauren, does someone have another question for Lauren in the school budget committee? You're safe, Lauren. Okay, so that's that.
Excuse me, sir. This lady stood up to speak, and you were looking at those people, and she kind of got ignored. And it's all right. I don't think that's fair.
I'm going down the line, but I appreciate your comment. Okay, and I'm not making her sit down. So there's an order that I always like to follow order so that I know what I'm doing. We'll get to her. She's not running away, and I'm not going to let her. Okay. So now I'm at the planning. Did you have a question of planning?
I do.
All right, come on up.
Hi, my name's Melissa Nickerson. I live on Partridge Lane, and our family moved here about 17 years ago, and I've seen Plaistow grow astronomically. I'm curious what each of you, how do we limit it seems like there's a lot of new construction that's going on. How do we maintain a small town atmosphere as real estate continues to develop in small spaces?
We're going to start with Richard this time.
Well, I guess I would say in terms of like new construction, there's actually, I mean, I don't think there's a lot of new construction. Plaistow's pretty much full.
Yeah.
All right. We did we got a grant to do sort of a housing analysis, and we did do a build out analysis, and it pretty much confirmed what, we already knew. And I think what, citizens here already know, that Plaistow is full. It was a good exercise. We have a data set that if we want to go back and revisit it to, sort of game it, in terms of like, if we put water here, how does that affect things? What can we do to adjust to, make use of, let's say, smaller spaces and such. But, per se, the discussions that we've had with developers where they've come in and talked with us, it was more of just to kind of get a sense of what they want to build and what Plaistow wants. And I guess that's an example where a developer came in looking to do something in around Haverhill Country Club, duplexes as opposed to large houses, was sort of the takeaway.
Thank you, Richard. I heard the bell.
It's faint.
It's getting softer, Norm, so you have to bang it a little
Not as aggressive.
harder, We're all been here a while. Peter, would you like to answer the lady's question?
Yeah, I've been here since about 1987, and I've seen some growth, but really the housing stock hasn't grown very much at all. Partridge Lane area, but there's a lot of open space there too in that planned residential development. Greenfield, of course. But one of the fundamental reasons why, for my family, my son had a hard time finding a house over the last 3 years is there's no houses available. And do we want our kids to be able to live near us? And it kind of comes down to we need some new housing stock. And we've got this new stuff going in, hopefully, near the country club. There's a small development off of Sweet Hill Road that just went in. It's going to be 7 houses.
Mm-hmm.
But we're kind of a little here, a little there is where we're at. I don't think we're going to see huge new developments.
Yeah, I completely understand having your children be able to come back to the community that they grew up in and raise their family as well. I'm just concerned that we're going to lose the small town atmosphere that we've had. And I just appreciate also living on Partridge Lane, the fact that we have water restrictions. We have a shared well. We've had water restrictions ever since we've moved in. And also, with the new water tower going in, there's been issues with the water. So there's really challenges that are out there. And I completely understand wanting your family to come back and move in with the lower stock that's available. The pricing is driven up, which is great for people that are living here and want to downsize at some point. But I understand what you're saying, but I am hoping that the planning board does keep in mind that most people move to this area so that they could be in a small town atmosphere, not large.
True that. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Can those standing in line tell me to whom you have a question for? Planning? Planning. So I'm not sure we're going to have a lot of questions for the library trustee, so let me just ask, anybody have a question for the library trustee? Would you like to approach the mic? And while he's approaching the mic, I'll ask for the last time, anybody going to have a question for our supervisor of the checklist? Sorry, Matt, I guess you're done for the evening, except for your wrap-up. Go ahead, sir, for the library trustee.
So with the atrocious continual tax increases that the town has experienced, the question of increasing the size of the library came up. We have a library that's outsized for the size of the town that we have. Not saying I don't support in the sense of having a library, but do you believe that there's a reason, any good reason to expand the library above its current size, given the fact that that will encompass another significant tax increase if that were the case?
Yeah, thanks for your your question. I can candidly say I don't know I don't know the library's needs for expansion and growth. I know there are ways to find that out, to look at projected use, to look at how it's used now, to look at the age of the building. All these things go into analyzing that, and I don't have that in front of me, but I do know we always have to keep looking to the future and preparing for what needs there may be. So I think I'll just leave it at that. That's a fair question. Obviously, is how much physical space does it need? I don't know that that's an issue on the table right now, but it's something that any administrator or board member or library director has a responsibility to consider and address.
Thank you. Now I see we have two questions for the planning. The first question we'll have Peter answer first. The second question we'll have Richard answer first.
Bob Kincaid, Old County Road. So question is specifically on the agritourism issue. Are you aware of any issues with the way that was worded that would prevent its implementation? Are there any legal issues or just other issues that you're aware of that would prevent it from being implemented as the petitioners intended?
Well, I would note, I've read through it several times, and I would note that in 5 or 6 different places, it says we'll do yada, yada, yada in conformance with Plaistow's site planning regulations. But then you get 5 or 6 places. But then you get to the very end, it's like, but we can't be compelled to have a site plan. Well, you can't measure whether somebody complies with the site regulations unless you have a site plan. So there's like an inconsistency there in my mind.
Richard?
Again, I'm going to go back to the fact that zoning is a living, breathing type regulation. All right, our site plan applicability ordinance for the last 2 years now is unenforceable because it's incoherent. So that's why it was restated on the for this warrant coming up. If there's something that is unenforceable, or if it's deemed to be something that needs to be revisited, then that's the whole point, that we should go back and revisit it. All right. If it's illegal or conflicts, let's say, with like some RSA, then obviously the RSA prevails. All right. But in terms of site plan applicability, where something, agriculture is a residential use in New Hampshire. All right. And so the tension is about when site plan applicability applies and when it doesn't. All right. And we don't have a problem with this town doesn't have a problem in expressing its view on when site plans are applicable and not. So I don't think that's an issue.
Thank you. The next question.
Okay. First, I just wanted to state that C3 that we talked about, that southern area of 125 that doesn't need to be for small businesses thing, I was the one that produced that one. My question is, there is somebody already on the board that does have 2 land boards represented. So would you have to leave, Pete, if you would have to leave or choose between the 2 then?
Is that to me?
Oh, yeah, it was.
Well, it sounded like it was directed
Okay.
to you,
Yes,
but I don't know
right.
if Mr. Anthony wants to answer
Well,
anything
yeah,
about
how do
that,
you
or-
feel? Right.
Well, hypothetically, if I were on 2 land use boards, I would have to decide which one I would have to be on if I was in a situation where.
Okay, but
I
I
had
mean,
to
if
choose.
someone already has it, we already have someone on there that does have the
Right.
2?
I believe we do currently,
Right.
yes.
Okay. So then what would be your decision?
We'd have to work that out. I don't know who this other person is. Who are you speaking of?
I'm talking about Tim.
Tim Moore, he's on the
Conservation and
Conservation
Planning Board.
Commission.
Well, Tim's only an alternate on,
It makes no
Planning
difference. You're
Board.
a member of the board.
I
That's the
believe it
rule.
does make a difference.
Okay, I'm just saying that, rules come back and forth between the ZBA and the planning board. And I just don't understand why you, as a person, would want to be on both when it is definitely a conflict of interest in how you feel.
Actually, I was on both for 3 years, and there were no instances during those 3 years where there were any conflicts.
Okay, well, okay, yep, thank you.
You have a question for?
Planning, last quick one. It's actually a yes or no. I don't want
Go ahead.
anything but a yes or no answer.
Maybe.
Do you support prime wetlands? Yes or no? Do you support the prime wetlands initiative? Yes or no?
What is it?
Prime wetlands
Right.
is basically the expansion of wetlands classification to further restrict individuals' use of their properties.
Do you want me to?
I think you go first this time.
Last time. All right. Well, prime wetlands was supposed to come before the voters, all right, this time around. It didn't get a hearing, or it had a hearing in front of the Conservation Commission, all right, and then it was decided that it was supposed to have a hearing in front of the Planning Board, all right. And I guess to frame it, it was a little contentious, shall we say, in front of the Conservation Commission. So I guess my position on it, if a prime wetland type warrant article were to happen this year, and there would be a public hearing in front of the planning board about it, my position is that if you don't agree with it, show up. And even if it's vigorous and even if it is contentious, let's hear what your reasons are. And I don't think anyone's land should be taken away without them being compensated. So if you have a situation where your land is not being, you can't use because of this wetland type, this prime wetland, then it is valid to ask that there should be some sort of remuneration of some kind, either something where, tax-wise, you're not being taxed on what you're saying you can't use. Okay. I mean, I have 15% abatement on my property because there's wetland. So anyone who's going to be affected by this, that should be a conversation that should be had. Otherwise, I think there's a point that maybe we don't entertain that.
Thank you. You have a question too?
I wanted an opportunity to direct something out.
Maybe Pete
I'm
wants to
sorry.
say something
I'll
about
be real quick. I'm in
no hurry. I'm in no hurry. Take your time, sir.
I'm in violent agreement with him on this, with Mr. Anthony.
Don't hit him.
I said agreement.
Oh, I thought you said violent.
No. No, if there's a land taking, people have to be compensated. Period. End of story.
Okay, thank you. You had a question for?
I wanted to speak to Mr. Termini for a moment, if that would be okay.
You want to ask him a question?
Somewhat.
Well, we'll take a question. If you have, make it into a question.
What do I need to say? I would like to thank you for stepping forward and doing what you're doing with the checklist, because nationwide, we've seen what a cluster things have become. And you people who do what you do a great job, and you're stepping up to the plate and you're helping to keep our town safe and valid. And I just wanted to thank you.
Thank you.
There we go.
So all my questions are gone. I think people had sufficient time, and we have to be understanding that we have another round of people that want to go and they don't want to be here at midnight. So I think it's time for our wrap up. You all have 1 minute to wrap up. And as I said, we're going to start with Lauren this time and head down the line. Lauren, go ahead.
Well, I just want to thank everybody for your questions tonight, and thank you for your vote.
Peter?
I'd like to thank everyone for attending. There are some really good questions. I particularly would like to thank the library personnel and the moderators here, of course. And I'd like to also thank just the voters. Get out and vote, people, please.
Richard?
Thank you for having me here. And I guess I'm going to reiterate the fact, please get out and vote. It's very important. My candidacy is about non-weaponization of the process and about making things transparent. All right. I think we all know that there are some aspects of this leading up to this election, things that are not transparent, and it's not by accident. All right. So if you want to see something like agritourism, go out and vote for that citizens petition. If you didn't like about how something was amended, all right, then you should probably say something in terms of a citizens petition. Because in my opinion, 60 or so voters were disenfranchised. And then depending on what the turnout is, let's say 1,000 people, that's 1,000 people that were disenfranchised by whatever it is that happened, culminating at deliberative session. I'd like to thank the library, moderator, and everyone else here. Please go out and vote.
Thank you. Randall.
Thanks. I'll pick up with my last sentence from my introduction. I would see my role as a trustee as helping to oversee the library's administration and policies within a responsible budget. I want to take Ms. Collins' question of transparency a step further. I think it's hard for us in Plaistow in general to know what's happening with town governance. And I hope the library can maybe play a role in keeping us better informed about the town in general. I think the library's staff and management have shown a high degree of professionalism and community sensitivity. And the trustees I've seen are committed to preparing an already strong institution for the future. And I would look forward to working with them. I thank you all for your questions, and I look forward to your support in the election. I also encourage your support for the current warrant article to fund vital repairs at the library, such as replacing a leaky roof. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Randall. And Matt.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Again, thank you to the library and everybody that came out tonight. It's always great to see this level of engagement from your neighbors. Late spring, summer of 2020, I happened to be watching TV one night and there was an ad saying, we don't have people to run elections. We need ballot clerks around the country. Please send us your information, yada, yada, yada. And I don't know why. I said, I'm, could lose a few pounds, but I'm healthy. I'm able. I said, I'm going to send my name in and maybe I won't end up on a list of robocalls. And fortunately I didn't. I got a phone call and I believe it was from you, Brenda, saying we would love to have some extra help. Working with the town and seeing folks in this town on election day has been one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. I do a lot of stuff, but being part of that process and being able to help people is just something I truly love. So I'm hoping for your support to continue that work at another level and to continue to be in service to the town. Thank you.
Thank you. And how about a round of applause for all of our candidates?
Okay, I get to make an announcement. I have to run home after this session because we are welcoming our new grandchild into the world tonight. His name is Theo. Theo Henry LaFoley.
Another voter. Welcome to the world in Plaistow. We're going to take about a 6-minute break. I'm going to have a new group with their name tags up here on the front counter. Enjoy the refreshments if there's any left that the library had put out. And we'll see you back live in about 6 minutes. Thank you. I could ask you to take your seats if you'd like. We're going to get started in about 10 seconds.
Ring the bell. You're good at that, Norman.
I welcome you back, and if we could have some silence in the room, thank you. I welcome those back that are watching on cable, the internet, Facebook, YouTube. And I know during the break they were showing the card for voting. Again, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., not 8 p.m., 7 p.m., 12 hours. Fish and Game, May Ray Ave, just around the corner. Come vote, come be present. And if you're interested in helping the elections, as Mr. Timoney said he asked one day, we're always looking for counters. Those of you that are coming to vote, there's 5 ballots. Town, school, and 3 other ballots for the planning and zoning. So you have 5 pages, both sides to fill in. So at the end of the night, we're anticipating maybe 6,000 to 7,000 pieces of paper that we have to physically count every page. So if you want to start to get involved in the election process, we welcome you. Come at about 7:15, 7:20, and we'll put you at a table with about 1,000 ballots in front of you.
Are you talking AM or PM? PM.
PM.
Okay, thank you.
You can come in the morning. We won't have any ballots to count, okay? 7 p.m., say about 7:15, because we close at 7. We have to run all the tapes. Then we have to tabulate. Then we have to count all the ballots. So that's a nice way to just start to be involved. Come with a whole bunch of your fellow friends and representatives and citizens and just count. As I mentioned the other night before the Board of Selectmen, we have a 3-way count to make sure your vote counts. We have a tablet machine that counts the ballots. We have our clerk that counts every ballot she gives us to give out. And we have a hand count. And ideally, they'll all be the same at the end of the night. And oh yes, our selectman, Mr. Britton, has said if you come to help, he's got Twinkies for you. And he promises me he'll bring them. He says they still make them. So that's your pay for coming to help count. You only need to count to 25, and I know they teach you in Timberlane to count longer than 25, but we make stacks of 25, and it's nice to help out in the election and also see what's going on. Norman's been resting. Now he's all set. You could hear that bell. So like we did at the first round, I have a number of questions that were called in, phoned in, emailed in. I'm going to ask each of these questions when I get to the questions to all the candidates, BudCom and the Select Board. They're pretty well applicable to both boards. So the same question will go down the line. As we did last time, we'll alternate who goes first, who goes last. But as we did with the first group of candidates, I'm going to start with my immediate right, Mr. Gerns. You have 1 minute. Everybody has 1 minute to introduce themselves. At the end of the night, Mr. Coy will start. He'll have 1 minute to wrap up, and we'll come this way. So we're going to start here with Dave Gerns. Dave.
Yes. Yes. Good evening. I'm David Gerns. I live on Rolling Hill Avenue here in town. My wife and I, my family and I have been residents of this town for 58 years. And I am just finishing up my first term on the Budget Committee. I look at this responsibility and this duty as a way of providing a second set of eyes for our finances. And I look forward to your support. And thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Margot Collins. Margot, Budget Committee.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First, I'd like to thank the library for hosting this for us. My name is Margot Collins. I reside on Old County Road. Been in town for 47 years. I've been born and raised in Rockingham County, and I've recently retired, and I have the time to give back in a different capacity than I've given back in the past. I've worked part-time or full-time, then part-time
dispatching and matron for the police department, so I have an inner working understanding of the police department. And myself and a handful of others that are still in town were on the very, very beginning of developing the recreation department back when we were nothing but glorified babysitters and didn't even know who half the kids were who they dropped off. I'm very tight with my own money. My two things most important are maintenance and safety. Let's maintain what we have, and let's keep every town employee safe. I've spoken with several department heads, and I've really pushed the word, let's be transparent, show us what we're paying for. Thank you, Mr. Major.
Thank you, Margot. The next 5 candidates are for the Board of Selectmen. We'll start with Tyler Shorman. Tyler.
Hi, thank you, everyone. Tyler Shorman, been a resident of Plaistow now for 16 years. I grew up one town over in Atkinson and attended Timberlane High School. My wife, my 2 kids live here in town. Running for selectman because I want to continue to improve on the programs and activities that we've built in town that are offered to the elder, the children, even us adults, and without being burden on the taxpayers, right? So being fiscally responsible and building upon what we've already have here and continue along with the great town of Plaistow. Thank you.
Thank you. Nolan Pelletier.
I wrote this for 90 seconds, but I had 2 cups of coffee, so I think we can do it. I'm Nolan Pelletier. If you've watched one of the town meetings or gone to deliberative, you've probably seen me around. I am honored to stand here before you as a candidate for selectman. I'm running for selectman because I believe in the importance of fiscal responsibility and prudent management of our town's resources. As a longtime resident of Plaistow, 20 years, I've seen firsthand the impact that the sound financial decisions can have on our community's well-being, from budgetary allocations to infrastructure investments. Every dollar spent must be carefully considered to ensure it serves the best interests of our residents. My vision for Plaistow is one of a fiscal accountability and efficiency. I am committed to streamlining government operations, eliminating wasteful spending, and prioritizing essential services that directly benefit our community. With my background as a small business owner, I bring a keen understanding of budgetary processes and a dedication to ensuring the taxpayers' dollars are used wisely. I believe in an open and transparent governance where Thank you.
Thank you, Nolan.
Didn't quite make it.
Elizabeth, Holly Patterson. Holly.
Hi, Holly Patterson. I live on Brady Circle. We're not on the map yet, but we will get there, off of North Avenue. While I didn't grow up in Plaistow, I did recently choose to make this my home. I'm a native of Western Massachusetts, daughter of a plumber. My background is I have a bachelor's in economics, a master's in accounting. I work for Bank of America in global treasury. And so in my father's book, I'm an educated idiot and a banker. So not good on any front, though I talk to him every day. Volunteerism is very important. I went to my first deliberative session here in Plaistow this year. Turnout really was a concern for me. I really enjoy the process. When I moved to New Hampshire in 2007, I moved to Atkinson and built a home there and raised my 3 children as a single mom there, 2 of whom went through Timberlane. Passionate about volunteering. I was on the rec commission and I recently served as a selectman in Atkinson as well. When I sold my home in Atkinson to make the move to Plaistow to downsize, unfortunately I had...
Thank you. Elizabeth Costa. Liz.
Hi, my name is Liz Costa. I'm running for Select Board. Thank you for the opportunity to meet with you all this evening. I've lived in town for over 20 years. My children attended Timberlane Regional School District. I feel as though I have a commitment to our community, and this is shown through all of my years in Plaistow. I've been deeply involved in a variety of community service and leadership. Currently, I serve on the Plaistow Budget Committee, the Energy Committee, the School District Budget Committee, and I want to point out that I was one of 2 people who did not approve the budget for the school district, because I think we need to do a lot more work with that. I'm on the district strategic plan, and I've had the privilege of contributing to important decisions that impact our daily lives. My recent appointment to the capital improvement plan for the town. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill Coy. Bill.
Yeah,
Hi,
that's
my
a,
name's Bill Coy. I've been a resident in town 27 years, raised my family here, put 4 children through Timberlane. I am currently on the Board of Selectmen. I'm the chair, which has been an honor and a privilege to serve on that. And it's been definitely an interesting 3 years. In that 3-year time, we've had to, find a new town manager, a new police chief. So it's been interesting. Fire chief was before me, but a good addition. Before I was on the Board of Selectmen, I was on the Recreation Commission for roughly probably 16, 17 years, chair of there for about the last 6 or 7 years. Being on Board of Selectmen gave me a chance to sit on the Planning Board, CIP Committee, Old Home Day, still on Recreation. And it's been great to give back to the community. I've been involved one way or another since I moved here for the last 27 years.
Thank you, Bill. So I'm going to start with the first question for Bill, and then we're going to move down the line. Then the next question will start with Liz. Almost every candidate always states, gee, I want to improve our community in Plaistow. Can you name 2 or 3 specific policy or infrastructure changes that you would advocate for to help improve Plaistow? 2 or 3 specific policy or infrastructure changes. Bill?
Well, I think one of the big ones we have right now is the ambulance service. That's probably one of the big things, and I think that's a great addition to the community. That just went live March 1st. And I think, having 2 ambulances housed in town, that was a big infrastructure change, and I think that's a great asset to the community. Having water, I think bringing that in, that was another big thing that happened. Had some hiccups in the beginning. I think we've worked through those hiccups, and now it's time to see if the town wants to expand upon that, see if that's what the citizens want to do, and then if they do, try to go out there, see if we can get different grants for that.
Thank you, Bill. Liz?
great question. I believe that we need to work on some transparency with information being put out to the town via our website. I had a couple of people call me and ask me, how do I find the warrant? Can you walk me through it? As Mrs. Collins has said, let us know what you're doing, and I agree with that wholeheartedly. Which brings me to the second thing, our website. I agree with Mr. Coy, the ambulance service. It's up and going, but I think more of that needs to be done. And I also think the communications, which we had a lot of conversations about at the budget committee, and how do we link it all in together?
Thank you. Holly?
Town website and communication is I think a really important thing that can be improved. Very difficult, especially to new residents or anyone trying to get even information about the election. We have a website that many of the local towns use. That's an incredible website, and I think it just needs a little bit of attention. And if I'm elected, I will happily volunteer to step up and serve in that capacity. I do think access to the town hall and various departments and the hours that are available to the townspeople should be looked at again as well. I think there's some gaps in availability for residents that the town hall serves the residents. I'm passionate about that. Also, I think we need to improve some of the process in the various departments that our trades need to work with as they're trying to develop, whether it be residentially or commercially in town. There are many obstacles that are placed. I've dealt with both sides, and I think we need to do a bit of digging in there.
Thank you. Nolan?
I would also like to reiterate the website. It is the thing that's most often pointed to for information. It is very difficult to use. I myself had actually contacted them several times for corrections on term limits, people in office. There's a lot of things on there that aren't up to date at all. If going in there, there's new tools available. There's Citizens AI. If you're not a huge AI fan, what this would do is you can go, it'll transcribe all the meetings and get it down to a smaller amount of, chewable, digestible things. So it's very difficult to figure out what's going on across the town. There's so many different committees and planning boards. And so this might be a tool that we can use so the community can be better informed and make informed decisions come voting time.
Thank you. Tyler?
kind of going to reiterate what they said, but as far as the website, I think I can help with some insights. I actually work in the IT realm and resell IT hardware and software, and I do see that there is a lack of communication and people are frustrated with it. So that would be one of the things, as well as what Bill had mentioned, expanding the water service to other residents. If that's what people want, that might be another infrastructure thing that we can look at to try to extend to the residents. Would those be my two things that I, off the top of my head right now, would say are the biggest issues that we need to address and to continue and improve the town?
Thank you. Margot. The question is, name 2 or 3 specific policy or infrastructure changes you would advocate for the town.
First of all, I think it's absolutely critical that every dollar is accounted for logistically. As I said before, my big things are safety and maintenance, infrastructure for the town. I would like to see the town webpage and be more user-friendly for those of us that aren't computer people. I would also like to see much more transparency from all department heads. I don't think it's that big of a deal to sit down once a week and write a weekly report saying, this is what my department accomplished today. X amount of speeding tickets, X amount of hours worked cleaning the highways, X amount of ambulance runs, X amount of patrons at the library. I really think as a citizen, and I'd like to clear up a myth that if you're on the budget committee, you do not get a reduced rate on your taxes. If one more person says that to me, I'm really going to get upset. I'm no different than the rest of you here. But to see every penny used well.
Thank you, Margot. David?
Yeah, I think it's important that we concentrate on the things that people need to know, and also where citizens can contribute. And I too have struggled with this website because it's just not it does not seem to be particularly intuitive to a non-technical person. But it's just, we need to know what's going on. In other words, we don't want surprises. I don't want to find that, oh yeah, my road was ready to be torn up and repaved, and I didn't know it was going to happen. And, all of a sudden I have mud in the house and tar on the car and stuff. It's just simple, basic stuff that is easy to communicate to keep people informed.
Thank you, David. Next question to Liz first and then down the line. If you're elected and had a wish list, give us your top goal you'd like to see accomplished during your term.
Fiscal responsibility to our community.
Thank you. Holly?
If I'm elected, then I really am passionate about making sure that our residents have equal access to various utilities. There's an assumption that Consolidated, as an example, is available to everyone in town, but it's not. Many residents have one choice. Similarly for natural gas and other overlooked utilities.
Thank you. Nolan?
Cutting taxes. First and foremost, it would be my thing, especially to what I'm going to call assets to our community, which are people that are on fixed incomes. They living in houses. When I say they're assets, they're contributing to our tax base. They don't have anyone in the school system, but yet they're going to be forced out of their homes. And when they are forced out of their homes and they have to leave town, they're going to be replaced with other families that are going to be, I say, a tax burden, because they're most likely going to be young families moving in with children. And we already have a strained, our school system definitely needs to be looked at, and it's roughly about 83%, but there's not much we can do here, but I'm going to look forward, maybe creative solutions to help ease that, especially for those on fixed incomes.
Thank you. Tyler?
Obviously, taxes is the top issue for everyone, and we need to maintain a reasonable tax bill without diminishing the infrastructure, programs, activities that we've built in the town. So analytically looking at the line by line of the budget, seeing if there's anywhere we can cut, without taking away from the great town of Plaistow and the things that we offer. So that would be my initiative.
Thank you. Margot.
One of the things I'd like to encourage, having a scouting background, is I'd like to see more volunteerism, especially with the young people. Our fire chief has recently put together a program where the kids actually get credit for their learning. Why can't we take that to the next level, talk to the school district and see if we can have some kid get extra credit or credits in school for working in IT and keeping up records at the library, or keeping up records at the historical society, or even the town webpage. I'd like to see more people get involved, and I think it's a shame. I appreciate everybody that's here, but I think it's a shame that people only show up and dance on a selectman or budget committee's desk is when they get a bill or when it's in their backyard. More people need to participate in the town if they really care about their town. It's not just a bedroom community. We all need to come together and participate and give something. You don't have to give a lot. Give something.
Thank you, Margot. David.
I think as a budget committee member, it's very important that I get detailed information from the stakeholder of a given budget. We get feedback sort of indirectly through the town manager, and occasionally if we insist that a department head come visit the budget committee and explain things. But our job is to drill down, get explanations of why the money is being spent the way it is. And right now, we just don't get that kind of input directly. What we get is second or third hand stuff, and it still ends up to be sometimes smile and dial.
Thank you, Dave. Bill.
Kind of reiterate almost what everybody said. Obviously, taxes are a big issue. And participation, the more people that can participate in the process, the easier it becomes. And just different things. You volunteer in town, now that's something somebody may not have to pay to get done. It's a great turnout here tonight, but it'd be nice if we could have this in the future in a bigger room because there were more people participating. We have a lot of committees in town. It's hard to get volunteers to sign up for those committees. I look at even something as much as Old Home Day. Everybody says they love it, but there's a staff of 4 people that are taking care of Old Home Day. It's the same like across the board in all these other groups. I know the budget committee, they struggle every year to fill. It'd be nice if everybody could step up, take part of the process. Many hands make for light work.
Thank you, Bill. This question will start with Holly. What specific steps would you take to ensure any future growth in town spending does not place an undue burden on the taxpayers?
I would think that you'd have to start with good, in-depth discussion as to why it's needed, and look at the various options depending on what is presented. If, fiscal responsibility is important, but you also, in my mind, have to take a long view approach as well. There's comments about the library needing a new roof. So if I'm coming to the taxpayer to say we need to raise money to fix that roof, I also need to be thinking, if I don't fix it, what are the other costs? So I would be looking at everything in a global view to make sure that we're doing appropriate maintenance to avoid long-term catastrophic expenses that we could have avoided.
Thank you. Nolan?
I think the question is kind of misleading because if you're spending, you're going to have to tax. So I think you really have to focus on what you're spending on, because no matter what you're doing, it is going to be a burden. So you have to be smart in what you're choosing and how you're choosing to spend your money, because there's no magic, nothing's free. So if you're paying for something, it's coming from somewhere. So I guess making the best decisions is the only way to answer that question.
Thank you. Tyler?
So I think we have to look at every option available, right? As Nolan said, if we're spending, that's going to increase taxes. So it's a double-sided question. But the first answer isn't always the right one. So looking at every option available to us, and if there's a cheaper option, working smarter, not harder. I think we all know that saying. And I think with my analytical ability, I sell to the federal government. I'm familiar with government contracting. There's different options out there. The most expensive isn't always the right one. So try to make sure that we're fiscally responsible when making those decisions to spend, that it doesn't overburden the taxpayers too much.
Thank you. Margot?
once again, I go back to the fact that in my own life, in my own home, maintenance and safety are critical. I think that's important with the town. I don't spend a nickel if I don't have to. I think one thing I would like to see on a more regular basis, not just on the budget committee when you get the papers, I would like to see brought in revenue, whether it be monthly from the different departments that bring in revenue, or if it be quarterly. I'd like to see what revenue's coming in, and that all goes into the general fund. We have talked in the budget committee that once this ambulance thing gets off the ground, that it has its own account, if you will, once it gets off the ground, so that we can see exactly what's going out, and exactly what's coming in. I'm all for that. Once it gets off the ground, we've got to give it the life to get it off the ground. We can't keep spending. We need to get the best bang for our buck, and we need to look at where our dollar is going. Maintenance first. You don't wait till the roof is leaking and the books are getting wet before you say, let's fix the roof. You fix the roof ahead of time.
Thank you, Margot. And Dave.
I think one of the ways that spending can be controlled a little bit is planning. I firmly support a strong CIP committee that plans long-term investments, whether it's a fire truck or a police car or other things. This past year, we had a couple of surprises, and that people didn't seem to have an answer for. And I would very much think that it's important that the CIP be active and be listened to help control and manage long-term capital investments. Because that's what's going to, when you get a surprise, that's what's going to impact the taxes.
Thank you, Dave. Bill.
I agree with David. The CIP is definitely a program that you have to pay attention to. And I think that's one thing this town has always done a very good job at, preparing for the future. And so you don't get hit with that big expense all at once. It's spread out over several years, which lowers the impact. The one thing the selectmen have done the last couple of years, we've now started giving some of the surplus back to the citizens. Last year we gave $300,000 back. The year before, I believe it was like $250,000, which helps, buy back some of that tax rate. Unfortunately, that doesn't affect the school rate, that's basically really 75+% of where the money comes from. But I think the town does run pretty sound right now, and we're pretty fiscally responsible. And I know as long as I'm a selectman, I agree with giving that surplus back to the citizens, because that's where the money deserves to go back to.
Thank you. Liz?
I believe we need to have a conversation with the stakeholders within the town and the department heads, and that is through the capital improvement plan. I also think that we need to be looking at grants for things that we can kind of offset and not set on the taxpayer. I also believe that, as Margot said, we need to keep our maintenance up to date, and it's always about the safety and well-being of our employees, as well as the maintenance of our capital.
Thank you, Liz. This next question, we'll start with Nolan. Are there any specific areas in town where you believe it is currently overspending or spending too much for the value received?
Yes.
Do you want to give us one example?
Well, the school's one. I mean, that's not so much a town, it's a district. But I mean, I think there's money to be found and ways to be found in pretty much every department. And I think it's, times are getting tough. We're going to see inflation, and it's time. I know I'm personally tightening my belt, and I think as a town, we have to look at tightening our belt as well if we're going to make it through this. Thank you.
Thank you. Tyler?
Yeah, I'll agree with Nolan as well. We do need to look at it, and I don't think there's anything specifically right now. I know the proposed budget isn't too far off the default budget, so there isn't a great increase this year, but I have looked at it personally, and I think until I'm in that seat, I won't be able to be as analytical as possible. But at this time, I don't think there's any departments that are overspending it right now. Obviously, inflation is affecting it, so the budgets are going up with every department. But I'd like to be in that seat and continue to monitor to make sure that those departments aren't exceeding what they were budgeted.
Thank you. Margot?
Well, I guess as I've gone through the paperwork that I've ascertained and read, what left me scratching my head the most was the police department. But with that said, I have to give the new chief a little comfort zone because he's new and there's been problems in the past. We need repairs for the antennas, there's no question, but there was a relatively large line item for the new uniforms, and I'm not quite sure all that was absolutely necessary, but I didn't get the questions answered that I wanted to get answered. So I'd like to monitor the police department a little bit more. And with that said, I'd like to monitor them in a different way. I'd like to see a little more patrols in our neighborhoods and not just on 125. Route 125 is a state road. We have state police. We pay that in our state budget. How about some patrolling in the neighborhood? Stopping people on our 25 and 30 mile an hour zone streets, and more tickets written. The heck with
Thank you, Margot. Dave?
I think it's very important to understand that there's some parts of the budget that are under contract and other things that sort of we're married to because of long-term commitments or what have you. That being said, there are sections that need to be closely watched and to make sure that we're getting our value. Margot mentioned the business with the couple of issues with the police department. And she's right. They were not fully explained. And I think this would have been resolved had the police chief been able to come to our board meeting and answer the questions directly. That didn't happen. And so we were sort of left hanging and had to make decisions on what some of us felt were partial information. So I think it's very important that we identify the parts of the budget that can be looked at closely and reevaluated. And that's one of the advantages of the budget committee, because we only work on the money, and that's all I have to say because the bell rang.
Down the end, Bill?
Yeah, one thing as a selectman, what I do throughout the year, I sit with the different department heads all year just to see what they have coming up, where they are with their budget, so you can monitor it all through the year instead of just monitoring it at the end of the year. That doesn't make any sense. You need to know what's coming down, where the needs are, and if they need a little more here, where can we take something away from somewhere else? As far as the budget this year, the difference between the proposed budget and the default budget is roughly about $250,000. If you look at that first article, the selectmen have already have it in there. The $200,000 will already be coming back to taxpayers. So the difference will close that gap. That'll be about a $50,000 difference. With the ambulance, the projected revenue coming in for that should be roughly around $400,000. To me, that should all go back to the taxpayers at the end of the day. So that's a way for that to come back. So that's the ambulance service is something to keep an eye on. Granted, it was an expense this year, and that was the overriding budget increase this year.
Thank you, Bill. Liz?
As I sit on the budget committee, we get the budgets and by department. And on the side, we get a description of, oh, this is because we have to outfit X amount of, for the police example, $50,000. We need to outfit 18 officers. Well, what does that incorporate? What does that entail? Please, don't tell us we need to outfit. Please give us an itemized list so we understand what we are approving. That's really important. I believe if I'm elected to be on the select board, I would really like to see monthly statements from every department as to where their budget is. Because that gives us a little bit more transparency to the board. And that's really important, that we are being given that information so that we can manage the money as we're moving forward.
Thank you. And Holly?
I don't want to, make a broad statement that's saying, yes, every budget line is too high. The fact of the matter is that costs are rising, taxes are important, and we all are struggling to keep every nickel in our pocket that we can. However, there's things that I'm sure the select board did, working with the budget committee to work through with the department heads, each nickel that was spent. I don't want to armchair quarterback their diligence. I imagine that it was significant. Let's take a different approach and look at the fees that we're charging. There's been discussion this evening about, new development and the costs that are and the impact on the town. Well, there are fees that can be looked at to increase the revenues coming in. What are we charging for inspections when we have to go out with the Board of Health and look at every commercial space? Do we have opportunity to increase revenue? Just as we do in our household, we are all looking for increases. You get raises every year, hopefully, even if you're on a fixed income, Social Security goes up. There are employees in town that need to be compensated fairly. The fact of the matter is that.
Thank you. And I see some citizens standing up in front of the microphone. So we're going to go to the audience here now. And this question will start with Tyler. You have a question for the board?
My question is, I'm going to amplify what Margot brought up with respect to the ambulance service. Part of the narrative with the ambulance service was that there would be a significant projected revenue stream that would be coming in and would offset the cost. But would you be open to having an enterprise account where that revenue is captured and is dedicated to offsetting that cost? Or if not, why? And what other mechanism would you have if you don't have an enterprise account to offset that cost?
Yes, I do endorse having the enterprise account, and I know that the ambulatory service was a big burden this year. I do know that the board is already looking at options of how we can try to create some revenue from that, whether it be other towns utilizing us or however that may be. But I absolutely approve and would endorse the enterprise account for that.
Margot?
Well, first of all, I am 100% behind. Once this takes off and starts making money, we've got to give it time to grow. I'm 100% behind having its own account. There's a special name for it, and I can't think of it right now. We got to give it time to take off. I believe it was 73.6% return. If you get transported by ambulance, your insurance company pays for your transport, but there's going to be a certain amount of people that don't have insurance, so we're going to have to eat a little bit of it. It is going to be an income, 100% income. No, it never will be. Is it better than going out for a contract service like what they were looking at redoing? Yes. But once it gets off the ground, am I in favor of putting it into its own account? Absolutely.
Thank you. David?
Yes, I fully agree with the concept of having an enterprise account when the legal criteria are met. Feedback we got, it would be a year or so before that would happen because we don't have a track record yet. But fundamentally, the idea of creating an enterprise account makes a lot of sense.
Thank you. Bill?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I mean, it's been discussed before, setting up an enterprise account that makes all the sense in the world so it can stand on its own, much like the water department, so that stands on its own as well. It's just might take a year, might take 2 years to get there because you have to build that fund up. You have to create the fund, build the fund up. You can't just say, okay, it's enterprise. There's got to be money in there to fund it to start. I think this year is going to be a learning curve with it. We'll see how it goes. But I'm hoping within the next 2 years, we can definitely get it to an enterprise account. I think that's a realistic goal.
Thank you. Liz?
I agree that, yes, we should have an enterprise account. I know you and I have spoken about that. I believe we need to see what's coming in. We need to support it because we have a lot of business that will be using this service as well as our community members. It's a no-brainer to just get funding, but we need to give the ambulance service time to build up and get going so we can see what it is.
Thank you. Holly?
I'm sure that there are state regulations as to when and if we can change to an enterprise account. I do think it's important that the initial investments are made. I do agree, though, or do believe that the initial investment by the town's people should be reimbursed before money is then, because there's going to be a constant drain initially to get the program up and running and make it successful. But once it's on its path and there are excess reserves, the town should be reimbursed for the initial contribution and then setting aside money so that we're planning for future maintenance and or new ambulances or whatever the program needs so that it's sustaining itself and they won't have to come back to the town looking for more money later. But if we don't put in enough up front, then odds are it's not going to be able to get off the ground successfully.
Thank you. And Nolan.
Yes. I do believe that it should have its own account. One of the major selling points about the ambulance is that it was going to provide revenue. There's nothing more than I would like to see than revenue created by the ambulance to support the ambulance. I think there is some money to be made. Hopefully they can make more, because in the past, the ambulance service was a zero cost. I know that's changed this year, but that means there was definitely some profit in there somewhere, that they were doing it for free. Obviously times have changed and they were going to charge a fee, but I think there's money in there, and I think it should go back and fund the ambulance itself. Goal being self-sustaining.
Thank you. And I see Max is up for a question, and Margot, you'll be the first to answer this question.
It's Board of Selectmen specific, so I don't know if
We'll make them all answer.
Okay. Past select boards have directly undermined the budget committee at deliberative session by adding back everything that was reduced during budget season. My question is, if you are elected, will you honor the will of other elected boards, or will you just do whatever you want because you know best?
Well, first of all, I'm going to be very honest. I'm new to this and I'm still learning. I so far have worked quite well with other boards. And if the selectmen are trying to steal all the money and put it elsewhere and I don't agree with it, I will definitely stand up and fight them. It's everybody's money. It's not just about me. It's not what's best for me. It's what's best for the town. And I go right back to maintenance and safety. That's what we have to do.
Thank you. Dave?
I go back to information that the budget committee needs to get, and it needs to be unwashed information. We need to know what people are doing, what their plans are, and certainly if we recommend X and the board recommends X plus 10, we're going to want to know why. We want to be able to ask that question why and get fresh, unvarnished information in order to make the decision. And so I think the main issue for me as a budget committee member would be to answer the question why. Why is it going up and why do we need to do it, and justify it in a way that makes sense to us and to the people watching us on TV.
Thank you, Dave. Bill?
Since I've been a selectman, once the budget committee has decided on the budget, we haven't added anything back in. Right, but I'm saying since I've been, and that's all I can talk to. And I know, and I believe that this year, what we made sure of when we had all the department heads come in on one night, we invited the budget committee to come in and join in that discussion. So we were all talking about it all at the same time. So we could hear what budget committee's questions were. They could hear what our questions were. I like to think it's collaborative, that we should work together. We're all have the same goal at the end of the day. But since I've been a selectman, we haven't changed the budget, because it is the budget committee's budget that gets presented to the taxpayers.
One year when we reduced the budget, then the Board of Selectmen went and added everything back in.
But I wasn't part of that. I can't talk to that.
But if it happens next year.
You can hold my feet to the fire.
Liz?
I believe we need to honor people's work. And part of that conversation when the budget committee and the select board was together meeting with department heads, that gave us the ability to have a real organic conversation to make sure that we were all on the same page. As a select board member, if someone says we need to jack this up, I'm going to be, no, we can't. This is what we were, this is what we agreed on, unless it is a significant issue where, I'm just using this as an example, septic system fails. We get a sinkhole on a street and we need to fix it. Then I would say, yes, let's do that because we need to fix those things. That's infrastructure that we need to fix. But other than that, I would be like, no, we cannot. Thank you. Thanks, Mr.
Thank you, Liz.
Major.
Holly?
I think it sounds like everybody's pretty much in agreement. The Budget Committee, working with the Select Board here in Plaistow, is a wonderful way to go about it. It's not that way in every town, and there can be a lot of contention between the boards. I won't promise you that I won't necessarily have an opinion as we're going through a process and having an open dialogue, because that's in fact what any one of us are here to be elected to do, is have an opinion where we feel that we're representing the best interests of the town. That being said, having it collaborative and working with the various departments, I don't see an opportunity for something like you're saying, the way it's. I'm not arguing that point. However, to Liz's point, there might be something that happened as an anomaly. I don't know. I can't speak to the fact, but
I was the chair of the budget committee. We went line by line. We presented the budget to the people of Plaistow at public hearing, and on deliberative, the select board chose to go up as citizens to add back everything that we had got. And that is not how politics should work. So my question is more, are you willing to go behind the back of the elected board that people elected to represent them because the select board thinks they know better?
and I would not say that I would do that.
Thank you.
So I'm going to answer this in the most honest way I can. If it's subtractive, I'm going to be for it. If it's additive, then I will probably speak my mind. So to answer that question is kind of yes and no. I would hope if I am selectman, that I have a budget committee that is cutting. And if that is the case, I'm definitely going to be all for it. If it's additive, then I'm not going to say that I'm going to commit to agreeing with them.
And Tyler?
First off, I'd say I don't think I know it all. My wife would probably be the first one to bring that up. But no, I would take into consideration, I mean, if you have the budget committee presenting a budget, that is their job, right? So working collaboratively with them, if there's questions, I'm going to bring up the questions, but I don't want to overrule them in any way. I believe in a collaborative workspace. I do that for my day job. I work with 6 different companies on jobs, and we all have to agree on things and have joint discussions. So I would look to do that, but not overrule it.
Thank you. Somebody at the mic, and the next question will start with Dave.
Ryan Lebrecht, 174 Main Street. So the town of Plaistow, I think for the last 20, 30 years has been pretty stagnant on population and tax base. So the tax base isn't growing and the taxes are continuing to grow because in my opinion, we're doing too much with too little. We're overextending the taxpayers, both municipally as well as in the school system. And there is a breaking point. Some people don't believe that. Unfortunately, we have a small sect of people that vote, and there's probably 70 of us that vote everything down, and there's 200 others that want everything in the sun. They want to pretend they're living in Boston. We can't afford it. And whether it's a larger library or what have you, or more trucks, our department heads, I've never met a municipal department head, and I met a lot of them because my dad was in municipality and federal and local government. I've never met any of them that haven't wanted a bigger truck, better truck, bigger building, larger office, more staff, more services at all. And that would be fantastic. But we have 7,700 people in town roughly, and it's been that way forever. And the commercial businesses aren't growing either. And and therefore we're doing too much with too little. So less is more, in my opinion.
Mr. LeBrecq, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
As selectman, what
Mr.
will you-
LeBrecq, can I
I'm-
have your
I'm
attention,
there.
please?
I'm
Thank
asking
you.
the question.
I was going to ask, where is the question in it? So can you ask the question?
3
please?
seconds more, the question was coming. So the question is, as a potential selectman and/or select woman, what will you do to reduce services and reduce costs in order to reduce taxes for this town?
So as I said, we're starting with David, but as the budget committee, maybe you can answer his question. What do you think the budget committee can do to reduce costs? And then we'll have the selectmen answer the same question.
We basically need, as I've said before, what we need is direct information of the why they want to spend the money they want to spend. If it's, and whether it's contractual or whether it's nice to have. We need to know if this thing is, if the cost is justified for us to support it. And we need to get that, as I said before, unvarnished from the department head.
Thank you. Bill?
Yeah, to cut services, that's kind of a tricky question. That really comes down to what the voters want to cut. I mean, what do you want to cut for a service? Do you want to do without rubbish? Do you want to do without a fire department? Do you want to do without plowing of the roads? It's tough. You'd really have to have a lot of participation to see what services you really need to cut. Yes, you have to look at everything every month on a monthly basis to see where you can keep costs down. I look at most of the warrant articles that are on the ballot this year. They're basically CIP driven. There's no projects on there or anything special like that. I know we just had to recently replace a truck for plowing. A truck, I believe, was 12, 13 years old. It was due to be replaced like 3 years ago. We had the money in the CIP and from the highway grant fund to pay for that. So to me, right now, we're just really looking at CIP on the warrants this year. There's nothing additional. If somebody wants to cut services and that's what the town wants, and that's what you do, you go by what the town wants.
Thank you, Bill. Liz?
First, I would look at the capital improvement plan and see what we need. And that's what I look at the capital improvement as, needs and what do we want. And when we look at services, we need to keep infrastructure in place as, do we want trash? Do we want to be plowed? Do we want ambulance? Do we want police? Keep that there. What are the areas that we can cut? So those are things we need to look at as a board to decrease our budget. I sit in a very interesting position where I sit on the Timberlane School Board. So I think looking at the school board budget and the town budget and kind of working at that, as you know, thank you for asking that at deliberative. I was one of the ones that said no to the budget because it's too high. We need to do something. Everything is strangling us, everything. And our taxes aren't, it's breaking the backs of
Thank you,
people.
Liz.
Hey, you're
Holly?
welcome.
So obviously, when you're looking at services and looking at potential increases, needs versus wants have to be weighed very vigorously to see, is it a need or is it a want? The thing to keep in mind is the town has probably gone through these budgets. I haven't, but the town people have gone through the budgets vigorously to make sure that every nickel in there is only what is required. So as things come up, you have to weigh it against that. We also need to make sure that we are keeping Plaistow a desirable place for people to come in as people look to sell their homes, because you don't want to cut all of the services that make it attractive, that would increase your property values and bring people here and keep the growth of the town sustained. So it's a balance.
Are you done?
Those who know me know that I'm not afraid to ask questions, sometimes to a fault, I guess. Unfortunately, asking questions now is seen as anti something And that's not the question. We should be asking more questions: where our money's going, how it's being spent. I'm not afraid to ask those questions. I'm not afraid to dig deep. And I also find that some of the no fault to the town, but some of the warrant articles are misleading because they say no new taxation, but people have to understand we've already been taxed that money. That's our money we've already put in and is sitting in a pool, and you're just pulling out of it. It's a very misleading thing when it says no new taxation. That's our money. We obviously spent too much and it's sitting in a well right there, and we're too eager to spend it, in my opinion, quite often. Thank you.
Tyler.
As far as cutting any services, I don't think we immediately look at what we can cut. I think we have to be analytical and look at, are we using all those resources? And if we are utilizing them, is there another option of where we can pull money from? Are there grants that we can help with those services? If there isn't, and the people vote that they think there are certain services that we need to address, I'm more than willing to ask those questions. You know, they come to us with, they want a new truck. Why do you need a new truck? We want a new building. Why do you need a new building? I'm not afraid to ask those questions and repeatedly ask them until I get the answer that, you know, justifies that expense.
Thank you, Tyler. And Margot.
Well, I think one of the things that has been put forth this year that made us all look at things differently, why would you hire a for-profit company if you yourself can do it cheaper? I can mow my own lawn cheaper than I can hire him to do it. The fire chief put forth a really amazing, interesting proposal 2 years ago. I started following it closely. It's going to bring in revenue, and the town is not a for-profit company. When they started looking at the new contract, it was almost double what we're spending now. So with that being said, he brought a new way of looking at things to us, and he also ascertained a mighty healthy grant. So maybe we can take this same aspect and apply it to other things. When it comes time to renew the trash contract, which we really got nailed on, maybe we'll look at it in a different perspective.
Thank you. I see someone at the mic, and this question will start with Bill.
Hi, Sam Cafiso, Kingston Road, Plaistow. My question is basically directed toward the Budget Committee. Excuse me. I served on the Budget Committee for 6 years, and 5 of those 6, it was the committee that the Board of Selectmen was not happy with. I noticed the 2 candidates here tonight both showed not being happy with the information that was given to them for this year's budget. Yet, on the ballot, I do see that the budget was unanimously approved by the Budget Committee. Did you or anyone vote not to approve this year's budget?
I did I did vote to approve it. I did a tremendous amount of homework. I knocked on a lot of doors. I asked a lot of questions. Overall, I believe me voting for it was in the town's best interest. Being new, I'm learning a lot. Yes, I did have to work for numbers, and I will work even harder next time around.
Yeah, the lack of raw information was troublesome, but we saw that there was a lot of the spending that was directed had been pre-planned, and we participated with the selectmen at their meeting where they brought in some of the department heads, but it was still left up in the air. Basically, I supported it because there was no alternative offered. No countermeasures, no ideas to come up to justify a reduced amount.
Well, there's always an alternative. You vote no, and then it's not a unanimous decision on the ballot. It's not a 9-0-0. And what I found is a lot of citizens really rely on that don't do their homework. And when they see an ununanimous decision, they think twice about voting to approve something.
Well, it's a matter of our own mindset and our own conscience, and looking at a budget and seeing if this makes sense. we knew that from the information we had gotten that department heads, a lot of department heads did not increase their budget. And where increases came in, it was because they needed staff or they were under contractual arrangements with their employees. But they worked. I felt that they worked hard to try to minimize as best they could some of the what could have been potential cost increases. But it's a matter of saying, very few of us had an opportunity to say why.
Thank you.
Bob, you want us to answer that as well?
Would the Board of Selectmen like to address that? He
I can-
really addressed it to them, but I'll give
Yeah,
you the chance
But
to.
the way that, in my mind, the budget process should work, and we started something new this year, where we had the budget committee come in and sit with the Board of Selectmen so we could all do it at the same time. But what should happen is through the chair of the budget committee, if there are still questions with department heads, they should pull them back in to have those questions answered. That's what should happen. If there's any outstanding questions, they should pull that department head, get that question answered. That's the only way you can put a budget forward. If you have questions, then you really can't support it if you still have questions.
Thank you, Bill. Liz?
I do know, sitting on the budget committee this year, when we sat together, we were presented the information. We went back as a committee, did our work. As questions came up, the budget committee chair went and asked the questions of those department heads. I do know that the police department, I keep picking on them, I'm sorry. There were a lot of questions about the uniforms, the tower in the back that we kept revisiting. And in the end, those questions were answered. So I was okay with approving the budget.
Thank you. Holly?
As a selectman liaison on the budget committee in Atkinson, it was a different process, and the process that you all used this past year here in Plaistow, I think, is far more productive. I would say that the only tweak I would make is that the budget, if there are questions at the time when you're having the joint meeting, first of all, it's more efficient with all of the chairs. It's not fair to have them come back 10 times. But the only improvement I would suggest is to have the select liaison person work with the budget committee liaison for that department to get so that both groups have representation on getting the answers to then come back to their boards.
Thank you. Nolan?
I'm not afraid to vote no. I actually put my name in to fill the vacancy for budget committee before their first meeting this year, and it was sat on for months and months, past the actual state limit. The reason I wanted to be on budget committee was I wanted to see a change in the budget. I don't know if that's the reason it was sat on. I couldn't tell you why that was the case, but either if I was sitting on budget committee or selectmen, if I don't believe in it, I'm not afraid to vote no, because I think that people do rely on that. And I wish that we have a very informed voter base. I know that some of the voters are, and I'm glad that people are going out and voting, don't get me wrong, but some people just look at the recommendations, and when they see a unanimous, they figure that there's no other choice. So thank you. That's pretty much.
Thank you. And Tyler?
To answer your question, no, I didn't vote to approve this. I'm not part of the budget committee. I don't sit in the select chair. But from hearing what I hear here and what I've witnessed, they didn't have the chance to ask why. So as a selectman would have to ensure that they have that time to ask why to the department heads, get the answers to the questions we're looking for, to make that informed decision. But I'm not afraid to vote no, not opposed to it. And again, I'll try to help the budget committee get those answers.
Thank you. You have a question?
My wife says I struggle with brevity, so I will be briefer this time. So as potential selectmen or participants in the select board, you have the responsibility of overseeing the myriad of millions of dollars in CIP funds that are amassed every year through warrant articles. Will you support, so two-part question, will you support a moratorium on additional spending for the town of Plaistow? Second question, will you support voting no on every warrant article next year to have 0 warrant articles that are dollar related so that we can curb the expansion of the municipality?
Start with Liz.
Thanks.
I'd like to hear.
You want me to start?
I got this. Moratorium on spending. I think we need to look at our contractual obligations and what is brought before us as a board, because I don't know what's coming up next year for contractual negotiations, but we need to put those on. That is our obligation to our departments to do that. We can't just say, "Yep, no more. We're not gonna do a contract. We're done with this," because that creates a whole nother whirlwind of issues that the town would need to address, which would cost us money, legal fees. Huh? Well, we could reduce in other areas, and yes, and I would look and see what the effect would be on the citizens of Plaistow. I understand where you're coming from. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Holly?
I'll be succinct. No, I won't. Because at the end of the day, you don't know what's going to happen. There are legal requirements. There are negotiated contracts that have to be honored. Do I believe that any selectman has to serve the prudential interests of the town and the residents of the town? Should we be pulling money out of residents' pockets just for fun? No. Every cent that the select board spends should be scrutinized in great detail. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm not going to support an article if the furnace goes at the fire station. They've got to have heat. Is it plant? Can we pull the money from somewhere else? If we can, great. If we can't, then we need to go to the taxpayers and say, hey guys, this is what we need to do. But you need to have the faith in the select board to know that they've done their homework and done their due diligence to scrape everything that they can before they raise that money. And I do believe that the Board of Selectmen would do that. I, as a member, would do that.
Thank you. Nolan?
Man, I really want to say yes. Really. I would say yes within reason. I mean, there could be things that come up, but I do feel that if we're making raises, we have to make cuts elsewhere. I mean, you could see, I was at deliberative. One of the things I was trying to do was actually cut the budget to account for the teachers' raises. So there would be no real gain in the budget, and the teachers could get their raises and they would have to make some other cuts somewhere else. So basically that's kind of how I want to do things. Obviously we have to keep contractual obligations and avoid any litigation in the town, because that's also an additional cost, which we should be avoiding right now. There's other stuff going on, but we won't get into that. So almost a yes. Is that a really political answer?
Yes.
Tyler?
That's politically correct.
I think it would be a great idea if we could have no warrant articles, and that'd save us a year. Is it possible? I don't know. As everyone has reiterated, there are certain things that come up, emergencies that may need to be brought up, but I'm totally open for us having a year of not spending. That would be great for, I think, everyone in this room as well as everyone watching on TV. So I support that idea. Is it possible? I don't know. I also agree that the CIP is a very valuable fund for us and useful, and I agree with you.
Is there anyone else who would like to ask any of these candidates a question that's here in the audience?
Jennifer Cassius, Board of Trustees of the Library. I just want to make it clear, we are not going to expand the library.
I know there was a question in there someplace.
So there'll be nothing. There'll be no warrant articles about the library next year, it sounds like.
Well, I want to thank the candidates. I'm going to come down to one last question. I tell you, talking about all the taxes and the cuts, it's kind of depressing. So, and I know it's depressing for those that can't afford it, but I wanted to leave the audience, both on the internet and here, with maybe a high point. So I'd like to start, maybe we'll start with Bill and ask, what are you most proud of in Plaistow?
I think, and I'm hoping since I became a selectman, the department heads, town hall, and everything are working and getting along a lot better. Where before there was a lot of division. I don't think we have that division anymore within the different department heads. I work well with all the department heads. I think that's a high point. I think the morale around town has helped quite a bit.
Thank you.
My opinion.
Liz?
I believe that the high point for me within the community is that there are more community functions for us at the library, senior center. Not that I go there yet.
Unfortunately, we're all knocking on that door.
I'm there. And I think that there's a lot of support in our community for people who need support. And that's something that we really should, thank the select board to be working with, and the citizens for voting in some of the previous warrant articles to support like So Rock and other community support systems. Sorry, drew a blank. It's past my bedtime.
Thank you. Holly?
I think that the town should be very proud of its courage to create its own ambulance service. I know a lot of communities worked with Trinity, and to have the chutzpah to actually do it is something to be very, very proud of. It's a commitment. I also think that the friendliness of everyone that you work with here in town hall, I thankfully didn't have the experience where there were so many people grumbling, but everybody is extremely friendly. There is a can-do attitude for the most part here, and there is a welcoming. As a selectman, I'd like to see us make it a little bit easier for people to get the information and become more involved, and just keep spurring that.
Great. Nolan?
We have a lot of benefits in living in this town. We have pretty much everything at our fingertips. We have grocery stores, CVS around the corner, anything you need. Tires or vape stores, we got plenty of those. Used cars. We are right next to 495. We can hop anywhere. We're good for commuters. And I think balancing what we have as benefits with our tax base is what's going to make the difference. At what point we don't want to make our taxes so high that these other benefits aren't worth it. And that's going to be the game we have to play.
Thank you. Tyler?
I'd say the thing I'm most proud of Plaistow is the activities and programs that we offer, from the elderly affairs to the senior center to the recreation department for the children, the activities they offer to the kids on vacations, the summer rec program, Old Home Day, all the community care stuff that we have going on. That's the stuff that makes me most proud of being part of Plaistow, and it makes this community what it really is. Seeing neighbors helping each other and everyone getting along now in the board so far. Hopefully we can continue that trend, but those are the things that make me most proud to be a resident of Plaistow, and want to continue that.
Thank you. Margo?
I think for me, this is more of a personal question than it is a public question, but I came to this town as a very young person, and there are people sitting in this room who were very young at the time, like Norm Major and Dow Britton. But I've had the opportunity, and I sit here and I look at one young man who's now becoming involved in the community. Norman was a scout leader. I was a scout leader. This young man was one of our scouts. I've seen a very positive growth, but I've had the opportunity to work with some amazing and incredible people, names that a lot of you won't know: Helen Hart, Ruth Jenny, God bless, pretty lady, Norman Fitzgerald, Steve Savage, Jack McSheehy. Like I said, we were involved with rec when it was a glorified babysitting service, and people dropped their kids off to us and we didn't even know the kid's name, never mind where to reach mom and dad if there was an emergency. And I've evolved over the years with some incredible mentors. And I look at Matthew back there, and he's stepping up as a younger kid, and how proud I am to just see this town grow in a very positive way and all the different things that are available to us. And we're lucky we have people that really care. So it's more personal than what others have said, but I'm really proud to be sitting here.
Thank you, Margot. And David.
What she said. Because I've been here probably the longest. I said 58 years. And I've seen the town grow and change. I've watched it go through storm and throng or various issues in times past, and we've worked through it. I have no complaints of the people who work for this town. Whether you're going to get your license renewed or your your car renewed, registration renewed, or your dog license, or you have a question about your tax bill, or whatever. I've dealt with the fire department on an emergency basis. I've dealt with the police department, and they've always been supportive and understanding, and they follow through. And this binds us as a community more than any of the issues such as money that has a tendency to divide.
Thank you. And before I start with Bill and you all have that final 1-minute wrap up, I just want to thank the library trustees, my assistant Norm Major, and all of you for being here tonight, and those at home that take the time to watch. And as Dean Zanella would tell me to remind you, it will be reshown and it's taped. It will be on cable so you can watch it after tonight. And not trying to speak for all of the candidates of this committee or the last one that was here, I'm sure if you have any more questions after tonight, we all know where they all live. So, so look them up, call them, and reach out. You heard them all say tonight that knowing and asking questions is important. If you have any questions, you have one more week to ask them the questions, because next week from 7 a.m. to
7
p.m. Very good. You all passed to 7 p.m. The election's at the fishing game. I look forward to seeing all of you there coming through voting. And I promise you there'll be no snow, and some of you might get Twinkies from Darryl. So thank you all. Thank the cable. Thank Dean Zanello and his crew. And we're going to start with the 1-minute wrap up
All
with
right.
Bill. Thank you.
I'd like to thank the library, Bob, Norm, Dean, who's hiding out in the back room, and everybody here for coming out and participating. I wish we were in a bigger room with more people. It's been a privilege and an honor to serve the last 3 years as selectman for the town. I'm hoping I've done some good, where I've improved a few things. Last 3 years, we went through a little bit of change here and there. We had to go out, with the new town manager, new police chief. It's exciting to see the ambulance service coming to town. I think that'll be a great asset to the town. We finally got the water situated, so that's helped quite a bit, especially with the different sites in town, homes in town that really needed it because they had water that they couldn't even drink. And it'll be interesting to see if anybody else in town is interested to see if we should expand that. I think there's a lot of good in the town, a lot of good people in the town. I think the people of the town is what makes Plaistow more than anything. And I'd appreciate your support next week, but more than anything else, please come out to vote. It's your right.
Thank you, Liz.
I would like to thank everybody for coming tonight. I'd like to thank Mr. Breton for his time and service on the board. He's done a great job. I'm here to listen to you, work for you, and I'm always looking for your input and how we can improve Plaistow. We've got a great ambulance service up and going. We have a lot of other initiatives in town, but I know the ambulance is the biggest thing that we've been focusing on. With your support, I'm confident that we can build a stronger and better Plaistow. And please feel free to reach out and send me an email. It's lizcosta@gmail.com, LIZKOSTA@gmail. If you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer them for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Holly.
Again, thank you to everybody who's not only here, but at home and facilitating this. The library, wonderful. Thank you. I hope to get the opportunity to serve this town as a selectman. I think that I bring to the table old-fashioned, roll up your shirt sleeves, not afraid to do anything kind of work ethic. I believe that I can help support a frugal, sustainable approach to looking at every expense that happens within the town. I do believe a selectman should manage the prudential affairs of the town and be able to face each and every one of you with difference of opinion and make a reasonable explanation as to why I voted one way or the other. That is certainly my intent. I believe in setting aside for natural evolution or utilization of our resources, but doing it, maintaining what we have, not always looking to buy new. I look forward to working with various town departments and feel that my ability to build consensuses across teams would be a great asset. So I look forward to having the chance to serve.
Thank you, Holly. Nolan?
I'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight. I'd like to thank these other people for putting their name in the hat, because we might not agree on everything, but the town actually has a few choices here. So I commend them on that. That being said, if you're happy with the way things are going, status quo, I'm probably not your candidate. If you want to shake things up, I'm probably for you. I humbly ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler.
I want to thank the Board of Trustees from the library, everyone that came tonight, everyone watching on live stream. I believe in public service, and I believe in leaving things better than when you found them. That's half of my reasoning for stepping up at the time now to be a selectman. I also feel that there's an age demographic, specifically my age group and maybe a little younger, that feels like everything's being taken care of, and maybe they don't pay attention as much to the politics. And I'd like to try to be that person that can help with the transparency, get them more involved and informed, and have more people turn out to vote. I'm willing to dive in, learn as much as I possibly can. Anyone that knows me knows I give it 150% when I commit to something. And I hope for you guys vote on next Tuesday, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Margo?
I'd like to thank the library for putting on a nice supper for me.
That was the friends.
Okay, the friends. I'd just like to thank everybody and wish everybody sitting up here and who was here before us the best of luck. The fact that we're here to try to help the town. It's really important to get out and vote. I wish this room had more people in it, because it's not my backyard situation. They only show up and dance on a selectman's desk when it's in their backyard. And we really need to come together as a town, work for the best interest in the town, keep as much money in our own pockets as possible, spend frugally, and move forward. So I wish everybody good luck. Please go vote regardless of the weather. And, we'll see you later.
Thank you, Margo. And David?
I want to thank everyone for coming, and the TV audience in the great Easter world. Thank you for watching. This is a wonderful opportunity to see and to hear the people who want to contribute their time and talent to improve the town. It's a wonderful group. I personally think you're going to have a hard time choosing, but that's me. So I want to thank everyone. I want to thank the library for the time and the space, and the opportunity to present our views.
Thank you. How about a round of applause for these candidates? And again, we thank you all for coming, and all of you that watched on cable, and we'll see you next week, a week from today, March 12th, Fish and Game. Thank you very much.
From 7. Anyone who wants the number. Haven't got an obscene phone call in years.